Okay, Tiffy.
Oh, we're recording for the first time in so long. I feel like a new person.
Yeah,
I've
I
needed this
think
in my soul.
our last episode may have been like October. It was before
No,
you went to Europe, I think. I
no,
don't
I
know.
went
It's
to
been a
Europe.
while.
No, because we talked about my broken foot. I
Right.
feel like it was like December, like early
December.
December. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's
And what
been
month
some
are we in?
time.
5.
I don't know.
So about 5 months. Welcome
Yeah.
back.
Is that where we are now? Yeah, it feels so good.
Mind Body
I
Energy
feel like I'm home.
Project. Take 2.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the name? I want you to say
Oh,
the name.
yes. Our episode today is called Revival for Survival. Oh.
Yay! It's so good. It's so good.
Oh my gosh. We had to reconnect for our own sanity.
Yes, yeah. We were texting about what the fuck was going on. And I was like, Yolanda was expressing how challenging it was to do things and how we were both like kind of banging our heads against the wall with the lack of motivation or maybe over motivation and lack of organization. And I was like, we should probably do an MBE revival series to talk about said thing.
Yes. And it's so crazy because I think a lot of times, like, because we're literally in our own little bubbles now. And I think people tend to think it's only them. They're the only
Yeah,
ones that are feeling like a nut bag while everybody else is
totally.
still like posting whatever on Instagram, right?
Yeah,
But we're here to tell you
you ain't alone.
you are not
You know
alone.
what's funny is that I was speaking of not being alone and feeling like you are. I mean, I'm very much alone. It's just me in my little space.
Mhm.
Like, what has it been? 7,000 days so far?
I know.
Um, which is fine. The introvert in me is absolutely thriving, and I haven't been bored for a single second.
Yeah.
I've spent some time, days, maybe even mindlessly sitting in front of TV, but for the most part, I'm not bored. But I was telling my mom that I'm doing so well as an introvert in this, and there's things that I'm not doing well on, but um, for the most part, I'm thriving as an introvert. But I was like, however, there's a tipping point where I feel like I'm never going to want to go back out into the
Yeah.
world. And then she sent me, and she even like the next a couple days later, we were talking, and she's like, remember, like, this is not normal. This is unusual. And things are going to have to go back to some sort of normalcy, which means I have to engage out in the world.
Right.
And I was like, I know. And I did that, like the emoji that has like the side eye thing, like the
Yeah.
side eye disappointment look. And then the next day she sent me an article that was posted in one of the local newspapers about this girl who she wrote like how we're all feeling. And she started it with, I'm an introvert and getting so deep into isolation that I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back out in the real world. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, okay, good. I'm not crazy.
You're not
I'm not an
crazy.
absolute hermit.
You're not alone. But the thing that's so interesting is I think even some extroverts are going to have a hard time reintegrating back out into the world because I think a lot of people are so afraid of another delivery. That's why I
I
was
know.
like,
I
what
almost
is
just kicked my
happening?
tea over for a second time today.
But there's just so much nervous energy about going back out. Like, are people going to go out and feel free to hug? Are we going to have to go
Yeah,
back out and keep our masks on? Like, what is our social interaction going to look like even when they say like, okay, you can go back out? Because I think there's still going to be some hesitation to just
totally. And not even just
normal.
hesitation of like, what's the right thing to do, but like, how am I affecting somebody else? Like, I think
Right.
this is a really good, this is the time. And I'm sure that it's divinely invoked right now for us
Yeah.
I knew the paradigm shift was coming. A lot of people have talked about it. I didn't know it was going to show up like this, but this is what we have because the universe was like, these bitches ain't getting it. Let's give them something tangible. Okay. We got the tangible. So what this time is giving us in incubation is really a time to take a look at ourselves
Yeah.
and how we affect other people, because just me going out on my bike ride, if I don't have my mask, I'm not worried about myself, but
Mhm.
I feel other people being like, oh, is she sick? Should she have a mask
Yeah.
on? Or I'm sensitive to the fact of, are they judging me for not having it? Am I making them feel insecure because I don't have my mask, you know,
Right.
and I simply just forgot to take it with me. But
Yeah.
I sense all of that. And I think that we're going to be way more sensitive as a population going back out into the world to other people.
Well, I think it is totally like this responsibility to each other. You know, I was watching
Yeah.
something on TV and this guy was bringing lunch to a bunch of nurses at the hospital, and the nurses all came out with their masks on, but he didn't have one on. And I'm thinking, mother, father, you better put on your mask and not contaminate those nurses.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, but I think it does. I think it really does speak to or highlight a lot of our responsibility to each other, but also that whole idea of interconnectedness. Like this thing smacked us in the
Mm-hmm.
face with, you all impact each other. You all literally can't infect each other. Like there
Yeah.
is no, and it's global. Like I think
Yep.
that's the part that keeps blowing my mind. It's not just like some,
Pockets.
you know, yeah, like segmented out. Like no, it's global.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this
And
is
it's
really
fast.
something.
And it's, you know, it's not, because I knew that too. Like as soon as this happened, I was like, yep, this is the universe trying to show us very vividly how interconnected we are, not only just physically, but like the economics too, you know, like
Mhm.
America isn't just America. America is because of China, because of Africa, because of
Mhm.
everywhere else in the world. Our entire infrastructure of finance is economics. Our health system is economics. Who we are to each other is just human energetic economics. Like we are all interconnected and everything we do affects everything. So
Right.
like if you don't start seeing yourself in somebody else and how we are affecting our own selves by how we affect others, then this is lost on you. This lesson is lost on you.
So like blink harder and maybe you could see more clearly. Oh, speaking of that though, the one thing that I thought was like interesting, I saw pictures of LA, no smog, pictures of like
Yeah.
the Himalayan mountains being visible because of no smog. I was like, wow, like we all have been forced to take a seat and Earth is like
Oh
correcting,
yeah.
self-correct, you know, it's like,
Yeah. And I've been talking about
yeah.
that too, the earth rebalancing. Like
Mhm.
the red tide is happening right now in California
Mhm.
and it's in the bay. I've never seen it in the bay before, but
Wow.
it's in the ocean. It's very thick. The bioluminescence at night is incredible. But
Really?
yeah, the bay is there's red tide there and I've never seen it get in there before. It
Yeah.
probably never could because of the boats and the people and whatever.
Right.
And somebody, unfortunately, he's fine, I believe, got bit by a shark up in northern San Diego. Like just nibbled on, which I mean, just
Nibbled.
getting nibbled on by a shark. Yeah. I think he's still all intact and he didn't die. But the sharks are moving in closer because it's their
Wow.
fucking natural habitat.
Right.
And us menacing humans aren't there. The
Right.
birds, if you notice, are chirping more like,
Oh, honey, no, this morning, because I've been getting up every morning to do this whole Akashic record thing. And when I tell you the birds were so talkative this morning, I was like, are there 10,000 birds outside my window?
yeah,
Yeah, they've been
yes.
very,
It,
yeah,
that's another thing to notice too. Like nature is readjusting back to, I mean, when all of this started too, back in early March, I think it was.
yeah, it was early March.
Yeah, so early March. So it was probably like 2 weeks into this. So this happened maybe mid-March, later March. There was the most epic hailstorm in San Diego that
Yeah.
I've ever witnessed in my life. And
Uh-huh.
I woke up, I woke up just before midnight, and 2 minutes later, the loudest clap of thunder I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yes.
And thunder and lightning storms aren't native to San Diego.
No, and that's what I was tripping off too when we had the thunder and lightning, because I'm like, this is like East Coast lightning that's happening.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So for anybody that's just tuning in now to MBE for the first time, Yolanda and I are from the Northeast. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Northeast originally. And we met in Southern California. And the thunder and lightning storms in the Northeast don't exist in Southern California.
Right.
So when I heard that clap of thunder, it terrified me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fall asleep because I woke up from a nightmare and I couldn't fall asleep. And then all of a sudden, like the wind is whipping and I hear things
Yeah.
hitting my back window and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
And
And I
the
look out the window.
earthquakes.
Yeah. Yes. This hailstorm was like somebody sliced open the universe and any amount of ice, little ball shaped ice, right? Like how does the earth even do that? Like
And
how
they
do you
would say again in San
do
Diego of all places.
Yeah.
And it's
Two
funny,
inches of hail
we had
fell.
a week where it seemed like there were like a couple earthquakes, like
Yep.
for a couple days in a row. But before that, one of my clients in Utah told me that they had a huge earthquake in Utah, which was like not abnormal for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what
Yeah.
is happening?
I was like, that night I woke up, I was like, oh, I get it. This is it. Like the floods are
Yeah.
going to come. The water's going to turn red. The locusts are already here. Like we're
The
done. We're done
locust.
here.
It is written. And then, since we're on this, and then
Yeah.
yesterday, someone sent me, or I think it was Amy and my mom sent me the article of the Pentagon
Oh yeah.
confirming about the unidentified, basically the UFO.
Yeah. Yes. Two people said that to me and they're like, oh my God, I thought of you. I'm like, of course you did. They're like, have you seen this? I'm like, yeah, I saw it a couple of years ago when it was unauthorized,
Right.
and you never know, it could be manipulated. But like, I knew, but I was like, whatever. She sent it to me. Katie Couric put it out. I was like, okay, Katie Couric is not going to defame
Yeah.
her. So I was like, this shit is real and
Yeah.
people are going to have to believe it now. And then my heart got so happy. I was like, yeah, bring it back. Bring it back.
Well, honey, at the start of this, I was thinking, like, I genuinely in my bones was like, I am not going to be shocked if all of a sudden there are crafts hovering over all major
Oh,
cities
you
because
just gave me the chills and I'm so
I,
excited.
I mean, just because of like, this is just so strange what is happening. And
Yep.
it's just so strange. And someone in the group that I've been meeting with, she was saying how she wanted to offer Reiki for people who are grieving right now, but like grieving loss, like death, people
Yeah.
who are grieving, people who are passing away in these times. And I was like, oh my gosh, honey, people are grieving everything right now. They are grieving loss of their job, loss of security, loss of you talk about grief across the board right now.
Yeah.
And you're trapped in the house. Like people, listen, we're here
Yeah.
to give you
Yep.
some relief.
That's right. Interestingly, somewhat on that topic, I thought another pattern and observation that I noticed was there was a week where a couple of celebrities passed away,
Mm,
not related to COVID.
right.
And I honestly think that there's just some souls that were like, all right, fuck it, let's go.
No, well, it's funny you say, so, my
Not to be
friend, no,
insensitive,
no, no, no,
but
no, no, but truly, you know how my friend who passed away in January,
yeah.
I was thinking, listen, he would have lost his mind if he was here for that. Like, when I tell you someone who would have been aggravated, like he would have been so angry about what is going on right now, man. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking about him because his birthday was in April. And I was
Uh-huh.
just thinking, like, man, if he was here, he'd be so mad,
Yeah.
so
And
aggravated.
what I was thinking about too is like a lot of them were older people too,
Hmm.
then they were like, okay, like I know what I'm going back to, so
Yeah.
let's just move it along
Yeah.
instead of waiting this out.
But so on the good side of things though,
Yeah.
like I have heard, like a friend of mine, she's revisiting her passion for photography and like some other things. Um, I haven't revisited anything. Oh, well, no, that's a lie. All of April, every day I went in the Akashic Records every morning for the
That's
month of
amazing.
April with a group of people. And for some reason in the last month, I've had this wanting to research and explore the Orishas and like, anyway, I have been dipping my toe in new ponds. But
Good.
yeah, what about you? Have you been like cracking open any new books, anything different?
Um, oh, well, when this whole thing started, I had a post-it note with a schedule every day. And
Oh,
I did it for 5 days. I was very busy. I was accomplishing a lot, and then I burnt out.
yeah.
But on that were a couple of books. I'm doing a couple of online courses. Um, but what I have to say is new is the breaking away from the routines. And
Oh,
routines are important. And when we're in a normal day of like having to work and all this stuff, I've been furloughed I
Mm-hmm.
believe is the term. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not working for anybody who's paying me. I'm always doing my own personal work. So I was very driven to do that and had a list of it to do, but I burnt out. And so what I've been working with is, rather than creating routines and forcing myself to be productive and have something at the end of the day to show, I've been getting back more into like what's valuable. What's valuable is knowing how we operate and understanding how we work with nature and how we work with energies, right? So like I was being quote unquote productive as
Totally.
what would be normal for a capitalistic society, right? Like what
Mm-hmm.
can I do to produce a revenue stream, especially when I don't have any income?
Right.
And yes, it's purposeful and it's necessary, but maybe ill-timed.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was recognizing is like, and I'm studying this course that I love the material. It's very hard material to study. But I was finding myself in my own self-observation, I was finding that I just wanted to get to the end of the chapter, take the quiz, get a good score on the quiz and move on so that I could take the whole exam and get my certificate, right?
Right.
And I was like, wait a second, I'm not involved in this journey. I'm only set on how the destination and how quickly can I get to the destination and get through all this, but I wasn't retaining anything. And I asked myself, I'm like, why? And it's because I wasn't following my own energy. So I
Yep.
started to just allow myself to follow my energy and be like, what is it that I want to do? And so one day to reset, I spent an entire day with my headphones on and just doing art. I was sewing, I made some jewelry, I painted, I drew, and I was like, this is what I need to fulfill myself right now. Like that other stuff, even though it's necessary at some point, can wait, because the more I'm leaning into what my energy is asking me to do for myself,
Mm-hmm.
the better I'm going to be at that other stuff. So I'm
Totally.
starting to understand how to work with my own energy better.
Now that's really amazing. I think that's one of the main things I've been saying about this is like we will become so familiar with ourselves and
Yes,
like what matters to
hopefully.
us. Yeah. And I think that is kind of like highlighting and screaming at us like, does this even fucking matter? Like, what matters
Yeah.
to you? And like, what do you need to let go of? What do you need to finally make room for, this and that? I just wrote down a couple of things that you made me think of. One is, well, I'll tell you after this. The other one is, that's why part of the reason I did the Akashic record thing, one, because I really did, that's what helped me open up to receiving messages. It trained me in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways to get out of the way and just let information come through. But it also gave me like purpose in the morning. I saw this meme a couple weeks ago. Someone posted, it said, purpose is the best alarm clock. And if that is nothing but the truth, honey, because the routine you were talking about, I used to get up in the morning because I wanted to go to Starbucks and get my coffee. You know, I'm a creature of
Yeah.
habit. I would get up
Yep.
at 6 in the morning, go get my coffee, blah, blah, blah. I haven't had coffee in over a month.
Oh my
The
goodness.
Starbucks
You
closest to
okay?
me was shut down. Yeah. So just in this last week, I have been going to another one further away just to get iced tea.
Uh-huh.
But that was what I think I was grieving, was the loss of my routine. Because I was like,
Yeah.
wait, why do I need to get up early now? Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So I had to create a new like structure, new normal for myself to not feel like a Looney Tunes. But and I also just want to acknowledge, because we're in the same boat, like a lot of healers, a lot of entrepreneurs, people working for themselves, these are like scary bananas times for us, because a lot of us do work in person. We can't do that right now. We can't,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, we can do Reiki remotely, but a lot of us are, it's just changed and impacted people in so many ways. So
Mm-hmm.
just saying, hope you all are,
Being kind to yourselves.
yeah, and we understand and we're here and we
Yeah,
get
and
it.
especially the empaths too.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
wait, but I
not
got to tell you about Humpty Dumpty first.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell
Okay.
me. I had something
So,
else I needed to interject there too, but I forgot what it was
where
right
is
now.
your pen? Did you
I know,
forget
I
how
saw
we
you
do
use yours
this?
and I was like, why don't I have mine near me? There's one right there. I can see it. Now I can use my telekinesis to get it over
Honey.
here.
Okay, so Humpty Dumpty, you reminded me of this too. Yesterday, I was in my Akashic Records
Oh yeah, that's
and
what it is. I'm
I
gonna go
was
get my pen.
asking, okay, get the pen. You can still hear me though, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I was asking about how to reconnect to my motivation, like how to get back feeling as active as I was before. Because honestly, throughout April, it was like I would get up, I was doing the Akashic records at 7 in the morning every day. And then after that, I would do a couple sessions and I would do a little bit of work, but nothing like the way I used to do. You know, like I used to, you know me, I'm on the computer, updating
Yeah.
stuff, checking boxes, blah, blah, blah. Honey, I was just like, and scene, I am done by 2:00. Like, and good
Yeah.
night. And so I was asking, like, how do I get back to my, I wasn't feeling like I was being diligent, you know, like I was feeling kind of like I was just pooping out. And so part of it was what was coming up was like this whole time for us being like being in a womb. And this is a time to like allow this healing and changes that are taking place before we're reborn back out into the world. Like literally there's going to be a collective rebirth, like nothing's going to be the same. So then I hear in my records, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And I was like, what the hell? And so this message comes through about how when Humpty Dumpty fell, he was an egg, he got cracked open. There is no way to put that back together. The king's horses, king's men, there literally, there's nothing they could do about it. Howsoever, he could become something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was like he was totally exposed, his guts on the ground, like poor Humpty Dumpty. But the message was like, we are all Humpty Dumpty right now. We have all fallen off the wall. Our shit has cracked open. We are seeing ourselves in a whole new way. And whatever is going on for us in this period, we can't go back to the eggs we used to be. Like we can't go back to what was. We have to allow ourselves to become whatever it is we're becoming, right? So I think if we can just in the back of the mind know that there's nothing wrong with you. You're literally changing. Like you are changing on multiple levels right now. So just try to come out of the resistance and observe and start to like participate in the process of your change.
Yeah.
But,
I had a conversation with a friend that in the beginning of all this, I was like, this is the ultimate chrysalis. Like everybody
yes.
is in there. They wormed their way into their
Cocoons.
chrysalis, and here we
Yeah.
are. We're all going to come out butterflies. So like, don't fucking resist those wings growing.
Right.
Allow the time for them to grow, because if you get out of the chrysalis before they're ready, you're not going to be able to fly.
Yeah.
So calm the fuck down and let your wings grow.
Might hurt a little bit. Oh, it's 11:11, but it's okay.
The thing that I was thinking about that I forgot was when you're talking about Akashic records and going into them for understanding motivation, I did something very similar. Somebody had reminded me of an exercise to do, like dealing with emotions and whatever. So I went and I sat in, and it's like talking to your emotions, like frustration or like anger and sadness. Why are you here? And, you know, the answer for me was like, I'm fucking frustrated. I'm like, what are you frustrated about? You know? And what actually came through is like, because my purpose is to channel, like, I know that I channel when I sit in meditation and I allow that knowledge to come through. That's my purpose. I am a channel. And I was like, I'd forgotten about that. And I forgot how fucking good it feels to sit and get that wisdom and then share it, because it's powerful. And I was like, I haven't been doing that. So I too am dedicating my month of May to channeling and putting it up on my Instagram stories so that
I love it.
I did it in October and it was powerful.
But it's funny you say that, because a few months back, I was like, how come I don't get messages in the way I used to, like just randomly? You remember? And like, it would get all thick in my living room and it was just like bananas. Like, honey, it was like a whole tribe would just come in and just, who knows what was happening. And I was asking if like a few months ago, like, wow, I don't think I've felt it that intensely in a while. It just, something's different. And the message that came back was so simple, like, you don't sit to listen. I was like, oh, is that it? Like, oh, I don't. Whereas before I did, it was part of my daily practice to like sit and just connect in and get messages. And now, no. Well, so the Akashic records and Reiki every day is what I'm doing in May.
Yeah. Interestingly too, in the beginning of all this, I had one major meltdown, and I was talking to my mom about it. And, my parents are super supportive. They're like, my mom's like, whatever you choose to do, you'll be good at. And I'm like, well, I'm doing this thing and it's really strange. And like, and everybody needs it, but nobody seems to want it.
Yeah.
And part of that was my own ego, like having a tantrum. But then my mom said to me, she's like, I know whatever you do, you're good at, but honestly, like, I don't know what it is that you're doing. So I was like, I'm all alone in this world. Like, nobody understands what Reiki is or what energy work or self work, and I got really frustrated and had a total meltdown. And I sat with myself and I did the whole conversation of like, this was a separate one from the one I had just told you about, the channeling. But I went through a whole rundown of a conversation with myself, and someday I will publish this. I'm not sure when the right time will be. But it got down to the fact of like, the board of directors were like, because you're resisting reflecting your light out to the world. And I was like, I fucking am. I'm resisting it, So
Yeah.
all of our emotions of feeling unsettled or disturbed or whatever is because, like you said, we're in resistance of our truth. And we need to take the time to sit down and listen so that we can uncover what that is, because we're covering it up with all the bullshit. And the bullshit is like what we're distracted by out in the world. When we're working, we're probably feeling really uncomfortable now because work is a distraction, family is a distraction, TV is a distraction, all these things that we have in our daily routines that we were talking about getting frustrated out of. We're frustrated being out of our routine because now we're dealing with the real stuff, and our routines are in question if they're valuable to us or not.
Totally.
And the transformation is always fucking uncomfortable. Even for us Scorpios. Love it.
Yeah, the queen of transformation. Speaking of,
burn it down.
We have a super full moon in Scorpio this month in May coming up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, honey,
yep.
talking about perfect timing for all that's going on. But what you said, it just reminded me too of, we have to have that willingness to change, and I think a lot of us, we do. We fight it tooth and nail. We're uncomfortable. I think for some people, it's a matter of not wanting to be wrong. Some people resist change because it means like what they were before, what they did before was wrong, or some other BS like that. It's like, honey, let all that go.
Right.
And again, the thing that's so interesting about this is it's not just you. Like literally everybody is impacted by this somehow, some way. So everyone is changing. Everyone is going through like up and down of emotions. Everybody's going through whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's just keeping in mind, there's no need to like cling to the old way, cling to the fear, cling to what's not. We all together have to figure out what will be.
Yeah.
Okay. And like, how are we all going to interact in the what is going to, what we are becoming?
And if we're becoming our best selves, and then all of our best selves are interacting with each other, hello, that's exactly the harmony that we've been needing to seek and find.
We have to let the other stuff die away.
That's right.
That's like coming back to Scorpio, right?
This whole thing is provoking an identity crisis in everybody. And that was another thing that I had channeled a couple of days ago, was this idea of holding on to what we think is our identity. Like, identities are nothing more than clothes that we put on. Like sometimes I'm an accountant, sometimes I'm an energetic healer, but I can take those off and put them on. It doesn't change the fact that in the true essence of who I am and the true essence of who you are is this perfect piece of source that came down to have this experience. And all these other identities that we exert so much effort trying to cling to, because that's what we have based our value on, then we're going to keep clinging to that. And it just diminishes our energy and it deflects our vision towards what we actually really are and what we're capable of.
honey, 110,000%. Okay. I had to up the number. It's just, yes. And it reminds me of, a lot of that has been coming up for me too, like questioning, like, what am I doing? What matters? What do I even want to do as
Yeah.
this all is unfolding? And a lot of it has come down to even being reflective to like how this all started. So like with podcasting and teaching and sharing, at first it was fun and I didn't even know if anybody was showing up or listening. It was genuinely fun. And then somewhere where I knew people were showing up, it started to become work. And then this like expectation I started to put on myself, as well as I started getting emails, becoming aware of other people's expectations of me. So it kind of like made me want to like, it took the fun out of it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I
Yep.
started to just like push it away. Like, what the fuck? This is not what I signed up for. And so it's been interesting in this space, like really having to deal with that. Like which parts of me still feel that way and which parts of me, like, is there any fun left? You know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had to kind of go like, yeah, like I can't do this way. I have to go back to just the roots, you know, just
Hmm.
like keep it simple. Like just keep focusing on my healing, what I'm doing to support myself, and then share what I'm learning through it. That's as simple as it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
How I got caught up in all the other, and you reminded me of it because the titles, right? Because then it was like, oh, well, now I'm a podcaster. Oh, now
Yeah.
I'm a Reiki teacher. Like, what do all these hats mean? Like, what do people expect me to like? Oh, girl, take them out. But
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
has time. I can't, and I
And
won't.
and similar to that, what I had been wrestling with too, and I understand that there is an economics to this as well, but
Mhm,
I'm formally trained at having gone to business school, right?
mhm.
So I studied marketing, I studied all these things, and I know what it takes to put things out and to, have that exchange of, what you're putting out and the return, your return on investment, essentially. I
Totally.
understand what that takes. But then you get caught up in like going on social media and seeing what everybody else is doing. And then you get into the comparison thing and then it just gets fucking exhaustive. And then I'm like, I'm not going to do it at all. But I forget, like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, yes, maybe consistency is what gets that return on investment more consistent and more like a quantity of it. But the reality is as long as I'm doing what fulfills me and what feels good and I'm putting it out there, that
Mhm.
will create my momentum to direct me towards what it is going to work rather than trying to follow the quote unquote rules or the routine of what the doing is. And I'm not getting anything back except exhaustion.
Yeah.
So sometimes the conventional rules don't apply, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But
I
we get
think we
caught up
should
in that a
do
lot.
a whole other episode. Maybe we could do after this of just like the impact on like the work that is coming up around all of this. So like what's changing for us personally, but also how it may be impacting businesses and like what people are trying to do to sustain. And then there's also the side where a lot of healers I know are feeling guilty to charge in this climate. And so they're just
Yeah.
offering everything for free. Meanwhile, in the background, they're like suffering because they need money and they need support too.
Yeah.
So it's like, you really have to be honest, like fuck
Yeah.
it. Like right now, like we all need support, and like yes, as healers and the work we do, we want to give and support and help everyone else, and that's great, but you can't let yourself sink while you're trying to hold up everybody else's boat. Like you
Yeah.
have to allow yourself to be supported as well. Well, maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah. And along that same line too, there's the idea of enabling.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not putting value on what it is you have to offer because you think you're going to take from somebody else is over there trying to figure out what's valuable to them also. And if you're just giving
Right.
them something that's valuable for free, they're not going to get the opportunity to adjust and prioritize their values,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
then it becomes a take.
Right. No,
So
I
that
totally
would
get
be
it.
a good topic.
And just before anyone gets upset, like I'm not saying you shouldn't do some
Yes.
things for free.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I do free
Do what you
sessions
want.
all the time. Yes,
Yeah.
do what you want, but
Do
be
what you want.
honest about what you need. That's the
Yeah.
point. Like,
Self-awareness.
listen, because again, I think the one of the biggest impacts of this whole situation is these mirrors are like right here. Like,
Oh yeah.
you are
They're like hitting us
looking,
in the face. They're
honey.
hitting us.
And it's like, don't try to ignore it and don't try to deny it. Like, what is coming up for you and what may you need to do differently to honestly support you, your path, what you value, all of these things. Because, honey, listen, the universe is not playing with any of us right now.
Not a single one of us. Mm-mm.
Not a
Nope.
one. In other news, before we go,
Yeah.
it is kind of cool, though, to see the way people are still making efforts to connect. I mean, like,
Yeah.
we should have bought stock in Zoom. Like, what is going on?
Girl, who you tell when? Are they even a public company?
I don't know, but it's funny. It's like families are having like family gatherings on Zoom. People are having happy hour on Zoom. Like, everybody's on. Oh, it's interesting.
Yep. I got a Zoom baby shower this weekend.
Do you?
Yeah.
One of my clients had a Zoom. Their child had a graduation on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just the other day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Interesting.
all going to be very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Age of Aquarius.
Is that what we're in right now?
Well, it's interesting. I just thought of that in particular because of technology and like how right now, like we are so reliant on technology because we can't go out. You know, the technology and this whole like the waves, it's very Aquarian, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But
I see that.
and the detached aspect, I mean, we are like all kinds of
It's my favorite aspect about Aquarius is
listen, you can't be attached to anything right now.
I know that is what I value in the Aquarius is their ability to detach, because I'm like, how do you do that? Like, teach me your ways.
Listen, I'm trying to figure out how to do it without seeming like a jerk face. That's often misunderstood.
I know, but from Scorpios like me, when people are like, could you just get out of my business? Like, get out of the why, Tiffany, it just is. And I'm like, but it's not.
Honey, and I'm on the other end, like, it's really not that deep. Like, why are we even talking about?
I'm like calling down from like the center of the earth. I'm like, Yolanda, it's very deep. I need you to come see this. Come to the edge of the hole. Look down here.
Oh my goodness.
Like a pothole top over it, just walks over it.
You know? But yeah, but it's interesting. Like, I feel like we're literally like watching like the change of the guard. like we are at this humongous transitional point. Like, but it's again, it's not just our country, it's global. Like,
yeah,
collectively, like something, this is a huge change. And it's like, yes, the COVID may have been the catalyst, but there's so much more that is happening because of this, you know?
Yeah. And I would beg that all of our listeners pass it on to non-listeners. And if they're non-listeners, try to make them listeners. But what I want
to say is please share the show with everyone you know.
And share this message of be in freaking observation. Like, watch. This is such a time where we're getting invaluable knowledge firsthand. Be in observance of what's changing and why. Stop resisting it, because this is where wisdom comes from.
Talk about 2020, the year 2020, but 2020 vision and stuff being exposed.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
Yeah. We are seeing things clearly. Speaking of, I know we're about to go, but this just reminded me, you may see me I'm trying to get used to I've always had glasses, but I rarely wear them.
They're so cute.
No, but now that I'm 43, I went to my eye exam like right at the start of this, like the first week of March, and they were like, "Oh, you need 2 prescriptions, one for distant and one for like reading." And I was like, "What?" So they're like, "Oh, we could put transition lenses," and I'm like, "Bifocals? Is that what you trying to be fancy and tell me I need bifocals?" And the girl was like, "Oh, but there's not the little rectangle anymore. It's just, no one can tell." But essentially that's what they are. So when I tell you, they are the worst to try to get used to, because if I'm looking straight ahead, it's one prescription. if I move my eyeballs down, but don't move my head, just eyeballs down, a whole nother prescription. You talk about feeling like you're on a tilt-a-whirl. One of my friends, she has the same thing. She was like, it takes a couple weeks to get used to, but you have to wear them consistently. But
oh geez,
honey, I got not forget about the COVID. Like this is making me like I can't like that.
oh my gosh, that's
Like
so
vertigo.
funny.
Anyway, just thought I'd share with you that
I love it.
getting old.
Yeah. Well, they're so cute on you though.
Thanks.
I have ones that I wear when I do computer work. It just makes things a little bit more crisp, you know? And day by day, I'm like, should I have had them on right now?
Well, that's what made me realize that I needed them. So, okay, you guys are going to forgive us, please, for this episode. This is our first time back together. And so
But this has been a great episode.
we're catching up on so many different levels. Like, that's why we don't really have a topic. We're just talking.
We're just trying to survive.
Honey, revival for survival.
Yeah.
So this is what threw me. The phone. So I'm on the phone and watching TV. So I'm adjusting. So I'm looking at my screen. Oh, I'm fine. But then the TV's blurry. I'm like, wait, what is that?
Oh, with your bifocals on?
No, this is what made me go get a new prescription. Because I was like, something's happening. Like, but it's the devices. Like looking at the devices, looking over here, device.
So I think this is a really good point because I'll be honest, like when I go to bed every night, I take my iPad and I fall asleep to a show just because it makes me feel not so alone. And I just look forward to my friends on TV, even though I don't watch the show. And every night I go to bed, I'm feeling guilty because I'm like, you know, that blue light, what that's doing to your ojos before you go to sleep, it's bad news. And that's just something to be aware of too. Like be an observation of like how much we're watching a lot more TV. We're on our computers a lot more. We're probably, I'm sometimes on my phone and watching TV and I have my iPad next to me and it's absolutely ridiculous. But part of it is survival, right? Because it's kind of keeping me grounded to some degree, but just be mindful. Like my thumbs hurt more because I'm texting more. I'm not talking to people.
You know what I've been doing? Wait, you just reminded me. I heard on the news this morning that Microsoft, what is a game box they do? The people do like Xbox or something.
Like
I don't know.
PlayStation or something.
One of those. They have had like an explosion in subscriptions.
I bet.
Because people are like, I don't even know what they're subscribing to. But I have watched anything on Netflix that I think I might enjoy, and there's like nothing left. Yeah. So I have moved on to watching things in other languages where I have to have subtitles.
Ooh.
I mean, it's, you know.
I like that idea.
So I was watching something and it was taking place in Brazil. They were speaking Portuguese. I texted one of my friends who's Brazilian to ask her something about it. And look what she sent me.
Oh, cool. I know. Yay.
Obrigada. That means thank you.
Oh, cool. I love it. I love that.
In the quarantine right now, I am going to learn Portuguese, and I signed up on Babbel to reconnect to Spanish. So I'm learning Spanish and Portuguese right now.
Good.
Reviving Spanish, relearning Spanish, and then adding in Portuguese.
I did that. I was on Duolingo. I was studying more Spanish. I learned a little bit in high school and college, and then I was studying more. There was an intended purpose, which no longer serves me. But I also at the same time was like, I want to learn French too. And then I was like, let me learn German while I'm at it. So I literally was going back between the 3 different languages.
Oh my God.
It's such a bad idea. For anybody in quarantine, and this was like not during quarantine. This was last year. But there is this need to feel like we need to be productive and do all these things, but going back to but there's a tendency to overdo it, right?
Totally.
And the brain just can't function like that. So going back to that, like follow your energy, you know, like you got called to study Portuguese and that's amazing. And like, it does take a little bit to find that calling.
Wait, but how cool is this? Okay. So Spanish, I've loved Spanish since Maria on Sesame Street when I was a little kid. I'm not even joking.
God,
that's
so
why
cool.
I fell in love with Spanish. I took it all through school. Love Spanish. Anyway, I did 1 semester of French and I couldn't get my life with it. I was like, what? I was trying to say it like with the Spanish accent. Spanish looks like what it sounds like. French was not my friend. Anyway, so I get the book from, her name's Renata. You've met Renata, right?
Yes, over technology.
Yeah. So I get the Portuguese book from Renata. I'm so excited. And I told you at the beginning of this conversation that I have been studying the Orishas and this whole connecting with like ancestral stuff has come up. So anyway, something told me like a week ago, call my mom and ask her to tell my aunt to check. She did the DNA thing that I won't do, but to see, it tells like where our family comes from on my grandmother's side. So it traces back to this country in Africa called Guinea-Bissau, and very specifically these people called Balanta. Guess what the #1 language is there?
Portuguese?
It is! Yes!
Wow.
Colonization. So,
yeah.
So anyway, I was like, how funny that I'm now taking up Portuguese and it happens to be the language of the place where my family, whatever.
I love it. You know, you're not the first one who has talked to me recently about ancestral things, like diving into the energetics of ancestry. And I too have been in the past couple of months.
It's weird.
Going on.
Something's going on and it wasn't intentional. Can we keep going?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
This was like maybe a month ago. I'm in meditation. You know how it goes. I'm in meditation and I hear Olu. And I'm like, Olu? Get out of meditation. I Google Olu. Olu is like one of the main Orishas. So the Orishas are from the, I don't know if I say it correctly, but the Yoruba people. They're like their deities, you know, they're gods and goddesses, they're deities. So they're Orishas. Anyway, you'll hear about and see the Orishas in different cultures, of course, too, because of like slave trade and everything. So like they are represented in like Santeria, they're represented in Voodoo, they're represented in like Ifa, they're whatever, all over, okay? But I personally don't know anything about them. I know Oshun, and that's just because she's a popular one that a lot of people have heard of, right? So anyway, I Google Olu and I'm like, oh, how interesting. He's an Orisha. And I'm like, well, then it like cracks me open to go down this rabbit hole of studying about the Orishas. And then I realize it's interesting that we know about so many like deities from other cultures, like Hindu, like other Asian countries, like Greek and Roman, like all of them. But I didn't know anything about the Orishas, really. It's a shame. So anyway, I have gone down the rabbit hole of reading about them. And now I forgot the point. There was a point though.
I can't remember what I said right before that when you asked if we could keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's like this whole ancestral thing.
Yeah.
And it was interesting though that it came up just in a meditation, you know. That's what sent me down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then when I asked about it in my records, what came up was understanding our like even like the deities that come from different cultures. It helps us to understand what has been passed down to us, like even through like our DNA. So it was like something about this ancestral understanding helps us to understand a lot of coding that is in our own base.
Epigenetics.
That was the point.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I have so many things I want to say about this.
Say it.
Well, okay, so 2 things. One has to be when you're talking about getting information in a meditation. One is that about a project. Remind me of that. The other thing is I just recorded my own last podcast for Mind Your Chakras. I did, there's a component in there that talks about genetic coding and how we're not necessarily a victim to it. Like just because what has been passed down to us, because I'm talking about being in the present moment and anxiety and depression and how they don't
Yeah.
exist in the present moment. And I put in arguments that would come up, and one of them is like that anxiety and depression are hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a very small part in there that talks about how, like, just because it's potentially coded in your DNA because of the energetics that have been passed down, and the energy creates the DNA,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what has been passed down, like from cultures or from experiences. Those vibrations go into what creates your physical matter. And just because it's coded in your DNA doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end game, because
Mm-hmm.
science has proven that environment trumps genetic coding, depending on how you allow it to express
I just
based on your environment.
read or saw something. Now I'm going to try to have to figure it out. But I just heard something recently about science being able to show how DNA can literally store like a ton of information, like a ridiculous amount of information can be stored in DNA. And the way that they explained it, it literally made it sound like we were like computers. You know what I mean?
Like hold on. Ready? Like we're quartz crystals.
Yeah. Well, that too. Yes.
Anybody want to talk about how the new
In our
computer chips
brains.
are
Oh,
going to be made out of quartz crystals because they can store so much binary information?
yeah.
Do we
Well,
want to
we'll
talk
have to do like a whole nother thing of that and like talk about our design and yes.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I'm
yeah, but
studying
it's,
human design.
oh,
Oh, we
are
talked
you?
about that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is Renata. Oh, we should have invited her and like, hey Renata. But yeah, she is too. But but yeah, I mean it's fascinating how so much is like downloaded into our space,
Yeah.
but then also that we have the ability to reprogram and rewrite or
Yes.
overwrite the
Yeah.
programs. But that's the part that a lot of us don't know. And then we feel victim to the programming, or we
Right.
just surrender and give in to the programming, like, oh, this is what I've
Because
got.
a lot of us have been disempowered to think that the programming is out here, like the
Mm-hmm.
smart programming's out here.
Mm-hmm.
But the programming starts here and it goes out. So like the good things you see out in the world have come from a place here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we want to talk about geniuses, but Alexander Graham Bell, is he the one? He invented the phone. I think it was his invention. And some dude on the other side of the world
At the
submitted a
same
patent
time.
at the exact same time.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
the exact same patent that submitted at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So that's telling me that brilliance comes from somewhere else, right? And we're
That
channeling.
reminds me of like sometimes people, and I have too over the years, like I'll have this idea or information comes through and I'm like, oh my God, because I've never heard of it. Then I'll hear someone else talk about it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell? That was my
Yeah,
idea. These ideas aren't yours. Okay.
nothing's original. There's nothing original.
Yes. And so the better thing to do when you have something come to you, even if it seems like inspiration, a message, whatever, and then you hear someone else talking about the same thing, instead of being bothered, really recognize like, why is this coming out and
Yes.
being delivered to so many different people at the
Yeah.
same time? Why is this
Right.
a focal point right now that obviously this message is trying to come out and through several of us for
Yeah.
someone to get the point, you know?
Yeah. And my point with that was that where programming comes from, right? Like we think we become victims to programming because we're like, oh, programming comes from out here. And you can choose to be programmed with what's out here, or you can choose to start with the programming here and put out and then align with the things that have other programming that have come from here and out, versus programs that have been out here and have been regurgitated over and over again that have gotten to a point where they've lost their good intent or higher vibrations in a sense, right? So if we're regurgitating programs that aren't working or that are just somebody else's that are being redesigned rather than it being something new from here, like from the inside and out.
Mhm.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, no,
I'm
totally
making sense
sense.
and I don't feel like I'm articulating it well.
No, it makes sense. You're just reminding me of I told you this before, but years ago, Ethel and I, we used to meet and channel with each other every day. And there was this period, at least 5 years ago, because it was before the elections and everything, where we kept getting these messages that were like, you guys have got to manage your minds. You have to manage your own mind. You have to manage your own energy, blah, 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 blah. And there's going to be like new programming, basically manage your stuff so that it's not managed by someone else is what. And we were so confused because we had never gotten messages like that that seemed so like a warning in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, of course we listened though, like, okay, so let's focus on managing, you know, more diligent about working on our energy and more diligent about paying attention to what is going on in our minds, our perspectives, these
Mind
types of
mapping.
things. Right. Yes.
That was
And
MBE's inaugural.
Yeah, that was our
podcast.
First podcast. And so after, even though we didn't really quite understand, soon after that was when the elections happened. And you know, here in our country, like people, it was very polarizing.
Yes, I cried a lot.
A lot of crazy that was going on in these streets. And so, so we thought like, oh, this must be why we were getting those messages. This must have been what they were talking about, right? So then fast forward, you know, now it's just been years of watching like the chaos unfold. And we're just like, man, wow, like, yeah, because you can look out and see how people are, it seems like in a lot of ways, not tapping into their own common sense and like literally functioning from spaces of like, God knows what, right? And then fast forward, now we're here with the COVID and everything that's going on. And so she and I spoke and we're like, oh, maybe this is what they were talking about. But it's like, the thing is so much change is happening. And I really think, you know, it's kind of like it's like a big open wound, and you got to get all the sick out. Like it has to come up and out. It has to come up and out to clear, to be rid of the system, you know? And it's so, it's like while all this clearing is happening in our collective system, it's important to, I almost feel like managing your own mind and your own energy is like being in a, what is it, like the suits, like a hazmat suit, you know, while all of the stuff is coming up and coming out to. Anyway.
Well, what I was just getting, I asked for like a good visual as an analogy. If we're not getting the programming from inside, like clearing out old programming and getting the actual good renewed programming, it's like, and if instead we're just taking the programming from what we're being given from media or from other people or whatever that hasn't been cleaned or revised or whatever, it hasn't evolved, right? It's almost like using the same sponge over and over again. You can reuse a sponge, but right? Like you can reuse a sponge, but at some point it's going to get fucking dirty. It's going to stink. It's going to deteriorate, and you're going to keep on using that to clean. Like that's not good. You need to get a new sponge at some point, you know? So it's like, what programs have we used over and over again to the point where like they become this disgusting mess of mildew and mold, and it's creating more mess, you know?
Listen to that alone just makes me want to take a bath, like, girl.
Right? So get your shit in order. Stop utilizing the programming outside of yourself because it doesn't feel good. Find your own new, clean programming inside.
It's going to take work. I mean, come on. Like, you know, it does, because you got to work through the layers of your stuff too, but it's so worth it. And again, I think this time is like a huge catalyst for all of us to go beyond where we were. So like if you are just coming into your work, your path, whatever it may be, if this situation was the catalyst for that, welcome, buckle up. It's going to be an interesting adventure. And for those of you who may have been, you know, doing your work, whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you for a while, that's probably a catalyst to go deeper into whatever your practice is, go deeper into, you know, whatever Tiffany said, like clean it up.
Yeah. We're in boot camp, people.
Honey, and we have been given the space for it. That's the thing.
Amen. Amen. I recalled back to several things falling in line when I didn't understand them. And, you know, then you always look back, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. And, or like things that you wanted and you're like, well, this isn't what I wanted. And then you're like, no, it actually is. I was going through this period where like, I have stuff that I need to get out of me, like in written form and like ideas that I need to see come to fruition. And I was like, maybe I should just book like a week away somewhere, like go to Arizona and book an Airbnb for a week and just see what comes up. And now here we are. I'm in my own personal Arizona.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, a week wouldn't have been long enough. These
Yeah.
2 months alone haven't been enough. I'm only
honey.
starting now after 6 weeks to be like, okay, we're starting to get in the groove now. So, you know, ask and you shall receive one way or the other.
And what you said too, it makes me think of the essential workers, like the people who haven't been given any space and time, but they're like showing up and putting themselves on the line to, it's like, really, I think we have to remind ourselves to be so grateful for those people that are like being forced to be out there. And you know, it's interesting. There's been a lot of emphasis on first responders and like the nurses and these and everything. And for good reason, of course. And like, you know, people working at the grocery stores and everything else, like providing for us what we need. My brother is an embalmer, and he posted like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, don't forget about us last responders. And I was like, huh, interesting. Sure. No one thinks about that. Yes, he still has to go to work every day. He's dealing with all the people that are passing away. I mean, it sounds so morbid, but still, you know, I mean, there's so many layers of, even while it seems like the whole world has come to a halt in many ways, there are still so many people who are out there and doing a lot. So for all of you who are, the last responders.
Yeah, the last responders.
I never even heard of them referred that way. So I was like, is that a thing?
Yeah.
I guess that they would be the last, you know. You know, like really though, you know.
Totally.
I gotta ask my mom. I'm gonna call her today, and because she was an embalmer before, you know. I'm like, Mom, were you a last responder? But anyway, like just making sure that we all also, a lot of people are doing Reiki for the planet, Reiki for the collective. Keep all these people, these workers in mind as well when we're sending out, whether you're someone who prays, chants, does energy work, whatever it may be. And even keep in mind the people at home who are suffering, the people who are, again, grieving, loss of jobs, loss of relationships. Honey, things are falling away.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, we got to be thankful for what we have and keep in mind that we all need support and just to do what we can.
Amen to that.
You think we should go for today?
Probably. We should probably let people get to what it is they want to do without listening to us go on and on and on. Listen, it's been 5 months. God damn it. I really spilled my entire thing of tea now. What is my problem? I guess I just wasn't meant to drink this tea.
Nice. You spilled the tea.
I spilled the tea.
Well, we thank you for being with us. Back with us. So you'll hear from more of us. You'll hear more from us.
Yes, and we'll get more of our people to show up.
If you have any topics that you'd like to hear us discuss, you know, always send us messages. We are very responsive to those. And they won't be as long as this one, but
they won't. Yeah.
It's good to be back. And
it is good to be back. We don't know what our production schedule is going to be either. So just bear with us. We know nothing. We just knew that today was necessary. So here you go. This is our gift.
A revival for our survival.
Yes.
It's good to see you, Tiffy.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.